As you all know, this channel focuses on exploring abandoned and interesting locations. Sometimes the subjects can be scary and thought-provoking. Today I'm going to do something completely different. Today I'm not going to explore a location at all. Today I'm going to share with you something that has crippled my life in many ways and has caused much pain and suffering. Not only has it ruined jobs and many nights of desperately needed sleep, but it's also held me back from actually going full tilt on anything that I truly love doing. I'm going to talk about anxiety and panic disorder from a first-hand perspective and the struggles that I've endured over the years since my first panic attack in the 8th grade. Now, YouTube is a great outlet full of personal stories and advice on all sorts of subjects. YouTube is also pretty free in the way of you can express yourself, whether right or wrong, in any subject that you shall choose. This isn't a DIY on how to cure anxiety because sadly there isn't a cure for anxiety. Only brief moments and victories, and how to deal with the next one that is right around the corner. Many people look at me and would never know that I'm suffering 24 hours a day in my head trying to calm myself down from slipping into a panic. I generally look normal and I can take care of daily duties and family as long as I go about it in a certain way to avoid certain people, places, and things. I have to avoid certain red lights as many cause me to get anxious and dizzy if I feel trapped in between two cars. I have to have exit strategies everywhere I enter and get extremely awkward in front of people. Sometimes I wonder if I have any normal social qualities. Okay, let's go back to where it all started. Oh, and by the way, if you guys feel like you don't know me out there, today you will. I'm pouring my honesty into this video for 3 reasons. 1, it's therapeutic. 2, the world needs some positivity. And 3, maybe one of you feels like I do and will be refreshed by my honesty. So, I was about 13 years old and staying the night at a cousin's house with a few of my friends, and we stayed up all night as we typically did, and it was right around daylight when my cousin and I got into deep conversation. You know, the type of conversation where you're thinking way too deep and you're legally drunk from tiredness. Little did I know I wouldn't sleep for the next 3 nights. We began talking about how powerful the mind is and how if you think too deeply into something that you could actually cause it to occur from believing yourself. In this particular conversation, we were talking about how if you freaked yourself out enough, you could give yourself a heart attack. Silly as that sounds. Now, as I thought about this situation, I began to feel lightheaded and dizzy. I began to sweat and have an elevated heartbeat. My mouth was bone dry and my ears were ringing. This was it, I said. I'm going to die. I honestly believed it. No matter what I said to myself, or how hard I tried to change my mindset, I simply could not. Because these weren't just thoughts. I was physically feeling this shit killing me. After my family and friends saw the condition I was in, they decided that I needed to go to the ER and maybe take something to calm me down. I wanted to go to the ER so they could check my heart. I can't really describe to you guys what a panic attack feels like in full accuracy because words cannot describe one. All I can compare it to is if you were to wake up in a pitch black body of water with the location unknown and you can't find something to grab onto or see anything. Dreadful thoughts of death and doom take over your body in an almost paralyzing way in which you can almost come to terms with your certain death, but it doesn't quite happen. After my first panic attack occurred, it forever changed something in my brain that for the last 22 years has not gone away. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is what I felt like I was experiencing. After the traumatic 3-day experience of my first panic attack, I had debilitating anxiety all day, every day, worrying about having another attack. I guess it would be like a robbery victim being afraid to travel in the same area where he or she was robbed, only my area was my brain and I could not escape that. Until one day my mom took me in for some tests and my pediatrician prescribed me anti-anxiety medicine, or Ativan, as a crutch for ongoing panic attacks. I have to say that being a naive teenager, I actually had some peace of mind knowing that these magical pills were in my pocket and they could take away my anxiety at any given time, and maybe it would prevent me from missing out on the life that I was trying to live. Boy, was I wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, the pills do work. They work like food works with hunger. You get temporary relief, but your immune system catches up, and they don't have the magical effects that you once experienced. Instead, you need more and more and more until you are basically a drug addict. Now, I'm not in the business of being a drug addict, nor do I even want to be on any type of medication, I thought. So what did I do to cut back on the meds at 15? Well, I remember the first time I got drunk. Boy, was it fantastic. For the first time in 2 years, I felt full relief. Not only full relief, but I actually felt really good and confident. In the neighborhood, we call it beer muscles. Alcohol to me was like Jesus touching me with his warm hand and telling me, it's okay, you are good. In other words, fuck it. I not only felt good, but I could focus on being 15 and hooking up with beautiful girls and putting on a reputation as a fun dude. At first. Soon enough, all I could focus on was the next party. And each day, the party got earlier until I started just drinking alone in the woods or in an abandoned building or house, just to be prepared for the party that night. I guess you could say I was a party professional at first. I was really good at it. I started realizing that I was becoming a piece of shit after about the 20th time waking up in a holding cell for bar fights or driving drunk or even being involved with someone being shot in the face in my own car while I was driving. I mean, there's so much that some of it I can't even get into. I realized that I couldn't stop drinking because the panic attack would be waiting for me. I was using the devil to fight the devil. He always won and still tries every day. After years of trying to fight this horrible mental disorder, I began to try to replace one substance with another. I tried to take my pills one day and drink the next and smoke marijuana in between. I got so low in my life to the point where I was homeless, and as you know, winters are pretty cold in Pennsylvania. But wait, I'm not a piece of shit. I come from a great family and I'm educated past high school and I'm not crazy. But why am I doing the same thing over and over again? Isn't that the definition of insanity and expecting a different result? Maybe I am insane, I thought. After hitting a sort of rock bottom, I sobered up for about 4 years and felt great. I was still taking the Ativan and antidepressants, going on 12 years at that point, and I had an awesome relationship with a girl. I still had anxiety, but my girlfriend at the time was very understanding about it and was okay with avoiding anxious situations. I'm so smart that I decided that we should have a drink of wine with our dinner one night. And it worked out fine until the next night, when we got beer and moonshine instead. I passed out early in the night, still being a lightweight after 4 years of sobriety, only to wake up to thumping on the floor above me. That caused some anxiety. And with no one in sight, I crept upstairs to see what it was, only to walk in on my best friend of 25 years and my girlfriend naked in bed. I cannot describe the pain I felt other than I'd rather have a panic attack than go through that again. Let's just say I went over the deep end, and being 25 years old at the time, I was also going through a period of my life where I felt lost. I knew I wanted to be married with children, but at the same time I couldn't even make it to a family function on time. I was completely unreliable. My anxiety was worse than ever. After being single for a while and hanging on to the rental house that I was living in, I started slowly getting back on track, but still trying to fit time in for a drunken night here and there. After all, I was single, and you meet people by going out. Sometimes. It was a very shitty time. It wasn't until I met my wife and her 2 kids that I started to come to a few realizations. Now, taking on 2 kids that you don't know, and going from being lonely and bored to being in a state of non-stop activity with these kids is not always a great idea for a recovering alcoholic. It's stressful enough to be sober at all, let alone have non-stop responsibility and children needing every second of your attention. Not to mention I already have a son from another drunken night a few years prior. Needless to say, I tried to still take the edge off using alcohol in the evenings while trying to take on 3 young kids and a woman that I didn't even really have time to get to know. due to the kids not giving us any privacy ever. When we did have privacy or free time, we spent it drinking alcohol. So then, I was out of town installing a store inside of a mall in Michigan when I received a picture text of a positive pregnancy test. After working all day, I made my way to the mall's Applebee's and was drinking a tall beer. And I started to think about the future, and I knew that I needed to kick this habit and disorder, but it wasn't until my daughter was about 16 months when I woke up having what I thought was a heart attack and terrible indigestion pain. I'd realized that particular night, when the Eagles had won the Super Bowl, I had sat down and drank a 12-pack of IPA that was about 11% in alcohol content, and a large pie of pizza all to myself in one sitting. As I laid there contemplating my life and what a fucking shame it was since I started drinking, I knew that I didn't want to die. After all, I had an amazing, domesticated, independent, hot wife with 4 amazing kids, and I owned the house I always wanted in the neighborhood that I grew up in. The only thing missing was the real me. The me that I used to be prior to my first panic attack. Since I was 13, I've been numbing myself from the reality of anxiety and panic disorder. And taking the substances that I did were doing more harm than good. I woke up February 5th, 2017, and decided that I was going to see another anxiety counselor. While luck would have it, she just so happened to deal with addiction as well. I wasn't seeking alcohol treatment, but if I wanted to keep in her program, she insisted that I take it seriously and quit all medications and alcohol. I almost laughed at the idea of stopping all those things together, not because I didn't want to, but because I honestly didn't think that it was safe or possible. I figured I'd try for a day or two, and then a week or 2 or 3 went by, and before I knew it, I had 6 months of complete sobriety and was starting to feel this constant positivity like I haven't felt in 20 years. I was starting to feel human again. It took 6 months to start to even begin to learn about myself all over again, as if I was a newborn baby or something. I literally felt like $1 million. I mean, I was motivated. I started lifting again. I filmed my entire 4-month process of dropping 40 pounds and eating clean. I also recorded countless projects that I achieved at my house. I pretty much remodeled my entire house inside and out and filmed the whole entire thing so that I could look back on it in future days and realize, wow, I mean, look how productive you were. But most importantly, I became a positive example for my children to look up to. Which, with that being said, I was never drunk in front of them anyway to begin with, but they knew that I enjoyed a beer or two. This channel started while I was still actively drinking, and I remember drinking in whatever town I'd be filming in, usually before I go to the destination. You can see a clear difference in my work after I woke up. I'm not really excited to share any of this with anybody, or even relive it myself, but to make any real change, you have to be real and face real life mistakes. And you have to learn from them. That is the only way progress is made. I haven't drank a beer or taken any anxiety meds in over 3 years. I'm realistic enough to realize that I'll never have any of this beat. Not the alcohol or the anxiety. The second I get cocky and think that I'm above these things in any way, that's when I end up in the ER. Last night, I had a panic attack. I haven't had one in so long that I almost forgot how horrible they are. Even though after 20 years of this crap, knowing what to expect, it is always like having your first one all over again. But with that being said, in a way, having anxiety definitely keeps me humble and helps me realize that at any given moment, I might not be here. These attacks happen while I sleep, while I drive, during meals and movies. No activities are exempt from a panic attack. Not to mention the depression that comes with it, knowing you can't do anything normal, or at least feeling that way. That brings me to this channel and what it represents. I find peace in abandonment. I find peace creating, whether that means the music in my videos or editing the pics, any of the research I do. I must keep creating because it is my therapy. I still have anxiety every day, all day, but I manage it by avoiding situations that I know will cause it. My family is amazing, and so are you guys. For anyone out there struggling with anxiety and or addiction, sobriety is always the answer. There is no cure for either disease. So in closing, I'd like to say that I am very grateful to be alive and blessed with all of these gifts that life has given me. Anxiety will always be a debilitating part of my life, but so will all of the beautiful things I have as well. All I know is if this resonates with any of you, and even if it doesn't, any problems that you might be having, maybe just grab your phone and a flashlight and do something abnormal, like check out the inside of that abandoned house in your neighborhood. You'd be surprised how fun it is. Exploring has always been a hobby of mine, but now it's definitely a way of life. Without it, I'd probably be dead in a ditch somewhere. There is a lot more to my life than just anxiety and panic attacks and drinking and partying. But those things are or were a very large part of my life, and they really turned me into the person that I am today, especially anxiety. Alcohol is the opposite of what I want to be, but anxiety has kept me humble. Anxiety has taught me many lessons, and I guess if I have to live with it, I'm going to live my best life possible with it than my worst life with it. So thank you for listening. I know this is bizarre. I know that this isn't a normal video that you would ever expect from me, but after 4 years of filming abandonment and showing it to you guys, I guess you deserve to know why and what drives me to do it. Anyone that's suffering from this shit, you need a purpose and you need something to keep your mind off it. And if that means walking into an abandoned church, so be it. You'll love it. Thank you.
Check it out, man. I mean, this merch is like really sick. Check me out, bro.